and almost not like a tumor or anything like that, but kind of like something where the bone is causing it to develop, grow into tendons, grow into muscles and stuff like that. And as you use you go through your regular process, it causes friction, sort of injuries, and it gets worse, and especially with inflammation. And that's the biggest thing for me is, and obviously, he had the microfracture surgery last year. This year in particular, he's been relatively healthy and has shown what he's supposed to be. I don't think he's a 3-4 outside linebacker. I know that's where they're playing him, but I don't think that's his best position. I've always seen him as a 4-3 D end, a guy that don't drop him into coverage, man. It's just kind of wasting him a little bit, even if it's just zone coverage. I just felt like that was just kind of a waste of his talents. But I do think there's a chance he could be that same player. But the injuries history, to a certain extent early on, is something that I was worried about, and it still continues. The bone spurs is still out there to be something that he could have problems with in the future. So there's lots of things health-wise that he has to overcome, and I think that was the number one thing that people just weren't very honest about during the process. Is nobody talked about his injury history. Nobody talked about bone spurs. Nobody talked about any of that stuff. They all talked about his effort and stuff like that. And when you put on the tape of that year, I didn't see any issues with effort. I didn't see any issues of him taking off plays. I saw a guy that was hobbled and hobbling at times during games, finishing out games. So that's showing, at least to me, mental toughness. But a man can only take so much. Even Brett Favre eventually retired, and he's probably one of the most mentally tough people you can imagine. So even if Clowney was that, I just think that there's a lot of stuff to be answered in the future in terms of his health. But I do think he still has the talent to be a great player. It's just he needs to stay on the field and stay healthy, and I think that's something that is a big question mark, at least going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that, it was very well said. The injuries I definitely noticed, and I read some injury reports about him from people talking about him about South Carolina always banged up and really playing injured a lot of his junior year. So, I think he could be a perennial Pro Bowl guy. I don't think he's going to be a Hall of Fame player, but we'll see. If he's banged up all the time, he definitely won't reach that plateau. But, he lived up to the hype at South Carolina. He's one of the most hyped players in high school history, especially at that position. He's done a good job so far, banged up, but he's on a good team. He's next to J.J. Watt, Cushing, and all those guys. So, and he's pretty young. Still, he's 21, I believe, went into the draft, so he's got a pretty promising career ahead of him. Number 3 guy on this list was George Farmar from USC. Cyrus Kouandjio, number 4 from Damascus Catholic High School in Hyattsville, Maryland. D'Anthony Thomas was number 5. Leo Collins was number 6. Clinton Dix was number 7. Carlos Williams number 8. Ray Drew number 9, and Malcolm Brown, the running back, at number 10. That was a really good top 10 that year. I thought Curtis Grant was number 2, by the way. I wasn't really a firm believer in Curtis Grant, but all the other guys I liked a lot, especially Ray Drew, just because of his size, 6'5", 240, being a high school senior. Carlos Williams, because, he could play anywhere, strong safety linebacker, play a little quarterback sometimes too. And then, the Black Mamba, the athlete, from Crenshaw High School. D'Anthony Thomas was, one of the fastest players I've ever seen in person. So it's kind of weird for me to, now looking back at it, he was just kind of a speedster. I thought he could be bigger than what he was. He never really grew too much. And then, Kouandjio and Collins, the jury's still out on those guys. I think Kouandjio is another guy battling a lot of injuries, kind of got overdrafted. And Lyle Collins had off-the-field issues, or whatever you want to call them, but he actually was battled Jadeveon Clowney in the Under Armour All-American game, and Clowney dominated Collins. Did a pretty good job with him in college, too. I mean, Collins is going to be, I believe, one of the best linemen in the league in a few years. I just think he has to give it time a little bit. But let me ask you a little bit about another guy, Clinton Dix from my team, the Packers. What do you think about him going forward? Is he going to be a guy? We just watched former Packers safety, now Raider, Charles Woodson retire. I'm not calling him anything that high, but can he be, a top-tier safety in this league for, the next 8 to 10 years?
Top tier, no. Above average, maybe. Ha is a guy that, I mean, from a size standpoint, you look at him, he's tall, he has length, he has all this sort of stuff. But the number one thing I keep watching, at least with him on the Packers, is just inconsistent tackling, inconsistent angles, not always making the smart play. Has definitely made big plays, and it's something that he did at Alabama in terms of certain interceptions and stuff like that. I mean, especially in the NFC Championship game, picked off Russell Wilson. Was it 3 times or 2 times? It was something like that, close to that, at least. In terms of big plays and stuff like that. But I just have question marks in terms of his longevity as a pure free safety who, I mean, if you just ask him to just roam around and do stuff, I think he'll be fine. If you actually ask him to do coverage responsibilities, I've seen him struggle with that a little bit against certain types of guys. So I think in terms of the career, I think he's a smart guy. He'll get better for sure, but I just think there's things physically that he just kind of lacks a bit that guys like, Woodson had, and obviously most of the great safeties had in terms of, being guys with really good physical tools. He was never really that type of guy coming out. But, I mean, could he end up becoming a really good safety and maybe have one year where he gets into that top tier? Yeah, but I don't think he's going to be able that can consistently stay in that top tier for the long term.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I have about a little bit higher, but yeah, I don't know if he's going to be a perennial all-pro guy, but I think he's going to be a solid starting safety in the next 8 to 10 years. I think he can do that. Let me ask you about this guy. He, has had a really good career so far. Maybe not as good as people thought, but I think he's going to end up being really good once they find a true, solid number one quarterback. That's Sammy Watkins from Fort Myers, Florida. What do you think about Sammy Watkins going forward? Can he be the guy that everyone thought he could be, which is basically, a lot of people are saying he could be what Odell Beckham Jr. is now, basically putting up crazy numbers and just kind of changing that position. Do you think Sammy Watkins will still be that guy?
The thing is Watkins was a guy. It was a crazy wide receiver class because I remember I was asking people about Odell and Mike Evans and all the other guys in that class, and I was like, yeah, Sammy Watkins is my number one, and never wavered on it once. Sticking to their guns in major ways. The thing for me with Watkins is just that, and the thing about Odell especially is Odell, based on his tape at LSU, was easily the second to the best route runner from that draft class, at least to me, in terms of being able to do the majority of the routes and do it at a high level, repeatable level, and with speed, with explosiveness, with everything else like that. Sammy Watkins, and it's not his fault. I mean, he played in an offense at Clemson that had a limited route tree. He did certain routes, didn't do other, kind of did seam stuff, did comebacks, did things, kind of, inward kind of stuff. But he's had to adjust that in the NFL. I think that he is a guy that is very talented, is very physically gifted player, very explosive, very fast. Not as fluid of a player as Beckham, though, which I think is the main thing that Beckham has kind of outshined Watkins a little bit with in terms of that. Watkins also wasn't really the tallest guy either. And I just say that in terms of, in terms of how you win at the wide receiver position. Watkins was a guy that typically won in manners that you see out of taller wide receivers at times. 6'5", 6'4" type guys in terms of how he liked to play guys close and tight quarters. With Odell, he was a guy that was getting that separation. Even though he's not the biggest guy, he can get that separation. Doesn't matter who you are. Got it against Josh Norman, even though in between punching him, So I just think that with Watkins is that's something that he just needs to learn. He needs to get better in terms of getting more separations, in terms of making more variety to his routes. And I think if he does that, he'll be good. I understand there's a big narrative that the quarterback's holding him back and stuff like that. And honestly, I think he has had 2 seasons so far that are really good. I mean, what Watkins has done in the last 2 years for any wide receiver that's that young is great. I mean, what else do you want? Most of the time, rookie wide receivers barely do much of anything. So I think I don't think Watkins is ever really going to surpass Odell. I don't really think he's going to surpass Michael Evans because during that class I kind of had Watkins in a different tier than Evans and Odell. But I do think that Watkins is definitely somebody who's going to get better, and at least to me has already shown that he's going to be he's going to be a really good player. I mean, he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver, for the foreseeable future, especially as more guys kind of retire. We still have kind of the old guard a bit at the wide receiver position. As those guys start to get older, start to retire, I think he'll easily cement himself in the top 10. I just don't think he'll ever really get to top 5 status, even if he got a really good quarterback and everything else, because I think he just has a lot of work to do from the technical aspects of things. That he just, and it's, again, like I said, it's not his fault. It's just he didn't do a ton of that stuff at Clemson to really prepare him for the extra stuff he had to do in the NFL, and that stuff kind of caught up to him.
Yeah, Clemson's, they've put out some really good receivers with Brian and Nuke Hopkins. I think Nuke might end up being the best of all of them. I think Sammy's done a really good job, though, for what it's worth. I mean, he's already had 2 head coaches and a lot of different quarterbacks, so he's doing a good job. I mean, no disrespect. I mean, it's just, Odell Beckham Jr. He's already one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL, and everyone's not going to be that way. Sammy Watkins still has a lot of room to grow. I think he'll be a really good receiver.
It's honestly like, comparing, Randy Moss to like Jerry Rice, or maybe not that, but yeah, it's comparing a very good wide receiver to another wide receiver. It's not fair.
Yeah, it's probably similar to like LeBron and Carmelo Anthony. I mean, Anthony is probably exactly. He's going to the Hall of Fame still, but LeBron James is LeBron James. He changed the game of basketball. So it's similar to that, or Dwayne Wade, or whoever, Chris Bosh, whoever in that draft class. So, yeah, I mean, but yeah, number 17 on this list, let me walk down this list, is Anthony Johnson, who was out of LSU, out of Perry Walker High School. Another LSU player, Jarvis Landry, his teammate, Odell Beckham Jr. D. Hart, who was teammates with HaHa Clinton Dix at Dr. Phillips High School in Orlando, was a top 20 player. He had a lot of injuries, though, man. He tore his ACL twice. I don't know what roster he's on right now, but he's a guy I was definitely rooting for out of Colorado State. Chris Frost, who's one of those few players that's still in college football on this list. A lot of guys leaving early and things like that, but he is going to be a guy that gets drafted, I'm sure, coming up. He'll probably do really good at the Senior Bowl and everything. Chris Frost, number 20. C.J. Johnson, who's at Ole Miss now, is at number 21. Stephon Tuitt, number 22. Isaiah Crowell, number 23, Stephon Anthony, 24. Moving down the list, guy I'm going to talk about, I'm going to let Jim talk about, a guy I've talked to personally is number 26 on this list. And he's a guy that hasn't played in the NFL yet. He played a couple preseason games and everything. But Cole Irla is number 26. Jim, what could have been with him, you think?